Good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm a little late today. We are in Vegas for a leadership summit, and so I am 2 hours behind my normal time zone. So it's actually 7 o'clock here and 9 o'clock back home. But wanted to talk with you today about the fact that you are God's workmanship. And so in Ephesians 2 verse 10, it says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared ahead of time for us to do." And so I don't know if you've ever had anybody say to you, "You're a piece of work." But it's true. You are a piece of work. You're a piece of God's work. And Paul, when he wrote this, he actually used a Greek word in this sentence that was poema, which is where the word poem actually came from in English. And there's only one other time he uses this word in the scriptures, and he uses it in Romans 1:20, which says, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse." So we're a piece of work. We're workmanship by God's hand. And we are created to do good work. We're created for a purpose. And a lot of times we don't think about this. A lot of times we're beaten down by the world, or we are beaten down by people in our lives and or situations that we're in. And so we don't necessarily take hold of or focus on or try to live up to, what was I designed for? What was I created for? What gifts have I been given, and for what purpose have I been given them? And so one of the things that I'd like to share with you is a story that I had heard about, because when you think about being a work of art, or think about being a workmanship of God, thinking about how a potter makes clay is a really good example of really what we're intended to become. And so basically this guy had gone on a trip to India, and he wound up meeting with this master potter, and he had been trained in China how to make bone china and goblets, and he had this display of all these amazing pieces of artwork basically that he had made through being a potter and working the clay. And what he described is the process of what he went through to create a piece of work or a piece of art. And he mentioned that, he walked back through, it was this old kind of broken down shanty kind of house that he lived in. And he walked through the back into the backyard, and there was this little hut looking thing, almost like an outhouse. And he said when he opened the door, the stench was so bad. It was just like worse than manure, like just this horrible smell came from this little hut. And he said what happened was when he opened the door, all you could see is that like this big black hole in the middle of what looked like an outhouse. And the guy bent down, and you could see in the hole that he was reaching down in and working the clay to get the lump of clay to actually create something. And he had told him that the reason why it smelled so bad is that he would put grasses and different things into the hole, and that as it decayed, it helped to make the clay more moldable and to stick together better and stuff like that. But it was really just like this rank smell. And he said he reached down into the hole, and he, sifted around until all of a sudden he pulled up this big lump of clay. And it struck me at first, thinking about this, just of the fact of, wow, thinking about God kind of reaching down into the depths of the earth and the dirt and just picking up a thing of clay, imagining us as the clay. And that he's got this ball of clay that he's getting ready to mold and to make into something. And then he described that the potter, went into his little hut, in his little house, and he had this big stone that had been carved or gotten from the hills of India where he lived. And the stone was really thick, a really thick piece of stone. Imagine like the wheel of Fred Flintstone's car back in the days, like a big thick piece of stone that was laid on its side. And he said he gently and carefully laid this big clump of clay in the center of the stone, which if you've ever seen a potter do clay, they have a stone that they set the clay on to mold it. And then he described very intricately how this potter started the wheel moving, and had bowls sitting on either side of him with water that he would dip his fingers into quickly and efficiently, and then would touch the sides of the clay and start molding the clay. And as the wheel moved faster, he moved faster and started gently moving the sides of the clay to try to form what he was forming. And then at some point he stopped the wheel, and he would pick out the little grains of rocks or sand or whatever as he was guiding his hand around the clay to mold it into what he wanted to mold it into. He would pull out the little rocks or whatever as he felt that they needed to go, because they were going to ruin the piece. And he said eventually he stopped the wheel altogether and showed him that there was like this crack in the side of what he was creating, which was a goblet. He was going to create a goblet. And it was ruined because something had gotten in it, a rock or sand or whatever, and had made this big line or crack in the clay. And so, he said he looked really disappointed and basically just crushed the goblet that he was creating back down into a big wad of clay. And when he asked him what he was going to do with it, he said, I just have to make it into a bowl, just a regular old finger bowl. And so, he definitely created the bowl and set the bowl up on the shelf and finished the work. But when you think about, imagine God having this ball of clay, which is us, and he is gently, tenderly, carefully spinning the wheel of life and gently trying to mold us into what he wants us to be, what he designed us to be, what he wanted to design us to be. And maybe think about it from this perspective. What if you were designed to be a goblet? What if you were designed to be a goblet so beautiful and so magnificent that you would be used to serve at the king's table, used to be the wine server to the king? Or what if you were designed to be the bone china that the king ate on? And when you start thinking of it from that perspective, that God is trying to mold us, God is trying to create us into something glorious, something beautiful, something breathtaking, something worth setting on a shelf and worth showcasing or showing off, if you want to say it that way. But we are meant to be designed into something gorgeous and beautiful for him. But what happened in the process of the potter? So what happened was there were rocks, there were sand, there were things that were ruining the clay as the potter tried to mold the clay. And so when you think about the rocks or the sand or things that can ruin the clay as the potter works the clay and tries to create something beautiful, those things that are what you would call resistance or sin or us not yielding to or allowing the potter to mold us. And when you start thinking of it from that perspective, it's like, am I allowing God to mold me into something beautiful? Am I submitting to God and allowing him to make me fine china? Am I allowing him to make me into a goblet? Am I allowing him to turn me into the most beautiful thing that I'm capable of being from my lump of clay? Or am I resisting him? And am I fighting him? Am I rebelling against him? Am I confrontational with him? And those are the little rocks or the little grains of sand that keep him from being able to mold me into what he intends to mold me into. And am I resisting him to the point that basically I ruin what he intended me to be? And I never am able to become what he intended me to be because I'm resisting or rebelling against him. And that really struck me when I started thinking about it, because a lot of what I've talked about over the past month has been about things. It's about God's will. It's about us surrendering to the fact that He is Lord and He is King. And how can I surrender to you? How can I submit to you? How can I obey you? How can I follow you? How can I serve you? How can I become what you wanted or intended me to become? And when you start doing that, it's amazing how much easier life gets. And I can tell you from personal experience, for all the years that, I either fought or rebelled against God, versus now that I am working really hard to try to surrender and submit on a daily basis, situation by situation, sometimes moment by moment, sometimes biting my tongue, changing, working on attitudes, working on feelings or opinions, or trying to just get my will in to be in line with His will. How much different my life is, how much easier my life is, how much more at peace I am, how much, it's amazing when we stop fighting God and start relying on Him and start being in line with Him, how all of a sudden the cloud is lifted off of us and our lives start changing. And I love this example of the potter, because when you start thinking about, okay, God, mold me. I may not like what you make me into, or I may not like being molded, because I may not like the feeling or the pain that it takes to get rid of the rocks or the sand or the pebbles that are keeping me from becoming what you want or intend me to be. But it's amazing how when you start having that heart, how much your life will change. So there's a scripture I love in Psalms 48, verse 8. It says, I delight to do your will, oh my God. Your law is within my heart. And really having that heart of, okay, God, I'm recognizing that you're the creator. I'm not. I'm recognizing that you intend for me to do good work. It is about your workmanship. I am your workmanship. You designed me exactly the way you designed me. You gave me the talents and gifts and whatever it is you gave me to be able to use and to share with the world and to be able to serve you and honor you. Help me to do it. Help me to become what you intended for me to be all along. And help me surrender my will to your will in order to become the beautiful goblet or the beautiful bone china or whatever it is that you want to mold me into, so that I can be useful for your work. So I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope this helps. I hope that this helps make things more clear to you guys. And I just want to step by step, day by day, try to encourage you to look to Him. And I also want you to know that I'm not asking you personally, I'm not asking you to obey me. I'm not asking you to do what I say. What I'm asking you to do is search the scriptures. I'm asking you to go to God. I'm asking you to pray and to ask Him to show you what His calling for your life is, what His will for your life is. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just a messenger. I'm just a servant myself. And I'm just encouraging you, if you want an amazing life, if you want an amazing relationship with God, these are steps, these are things that hopefully will encourage and help you to get to where hopefully you want to be. And I hope you all have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.